Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or you've been with me from the beginning, I want to say thank you for being a part of this journey. The show is all about helping you take control of your health, understand your body better, and ultimately live a life that feels vibrant and fulfilling. Now, I know when we start talking about topics like glucose and blood sugar, it can feel a bit, technical. But trust me when I say this is one of the most important things you can understand about your health, especially if you're dealing with any health issues, specifically like insulin resistance or maybe prediabetes and maybe another chronic condition. And this is what we're going to be focusing on today, and a little bit about why I didn't accept the normal range. This isn't just about managing symptoms, it's really about getting to the root of what's going on in your body and making choices that support you for long-term health and well-being. So before we dive in, I want to share a little bit about why I'm so passionate about this. Like some of you know, a few years ago, I was in a place where I felt stuck, felt frustrated with my health. I wasn't getting the answers I needed from my doctors, and honestly just tired of feeling like I wasn't in control of my own body. My fasting glucose levels were creeping up. My energy was all over the place. I was struggling with things like not getting my period after coming off birth control. And it was my body was sending me all these signals, but no one could tell me what they meant or how to fix it. So that's when I decided to take matters into my own hands. I started doing a deep dive into the science of glucose and insulin, learning everything and anything I could about how they impact our health, especially those of us dealing with insulin resistance, or maybe you're at risk for diabetes, type 2 diabetes specifically. And let me tell you what I found out changed everything for me. I realized that the quote-unquote normal ranges we're often told to aim for might not actually be optimal for everyone, most of us really. And there's so much more we can do to support our bodies to stay healthy and strong. So today, I want to share some of that knowledge with you. We're going to break down what glucose is and why simply being quote-unquote normal isn't necessarily good enough, and how you can take control of your health even if your doctor says everything looks fine. And just to be clear again, we're talking specifically about type 2 diabetes, not type 1. I know there can be some confusion between the two, but they're actually two very different conditions with different causes and treatments. So my focus would really be on the type 2 diabetes and lifestyle factors that can help prevent or manage it. So by the end of this episode, I hope that you'll walk away with a better understanding of what glucose is, practical tips for keeping them in check, and just the confidence to take charge of your own health journey, and why I didn't accept normal as optimal. So grab a cup of coffee or sparkling water, get comfortable, and let's get glowing. I'm Caitlin, and your host of the Glucose Glow Up Show. I'm a natural researcher and girl mama who dove into metabolic health research to heal my insulin resistance, all with the hopes of growing our family. Now I'm here to give you an inside look on how I achieved my glucose glow up and to share my journey with you so we all can achieve optimal health. I know we all want to be healthy, but with so much noise out there, it's hard to know where to start. Whether you're trying to start or grow your family, improve your fasting glucose or A1C, or just learn how I'm biohacking my health for longevity, you're in the right place. Let's get glowing. So, what is glucose and insulin resistance? I want to dive into what those are. So I want to break it down in a very straightforward and easy to understand way for you, because this topic is crucial for anyone looking to optimize their health. What exactly is glucose? Glucose is a type of sugar that serves as one of our body's primary energy sources. When you eat food, especially carbohydrates, your system breaks it down into glucose, which then enters your bloodstream, and this rise or spike in blood sugar signals your pancreas to release insulin, a hormone that sort of acts like a key to help unlock your cells so they can absorb all the glucose and use it for energy. Any glucose that isn't immediately needed is stored as fat for later use. Now, this is sort of where it gets interesting. The goal is to maintain a steady stream of glucose throughout the day. I've talked about this before. We don't want large up and down spikes, like really large ones. Your glucose is going to rise when eating. That is normal. But when your body experiences these large fluctuations in glucose levels, like I said, those dramatic spikes that occur after consuming sugary snacks or refined carbs, your body has to work a lot harder to keep up. So this is where insulin comes into play. Your pancreas releases more and more insulin to help manage those spikes. And over time, this constant spike of insulin can lead to a condition called insulin resistance. So what does that mean? Insulin resistance happens when the insulin receptors on your cells become less responsive or numb to insulin. So think of it like this. When everything is functioning well, insulin is able to efficiently transport glucose into your cell. But with these repeated spikes in glucose, those receptors can get clogged up and coated with fat, and as a result, the glucose struggles to enter the cells, leading to an accumulation of sugar in your bloodstream. So that's how you end up with these higher glucose readings and really ultimately pave the way for conditions like prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. To give you some context about my own journey with glucose education, I started with absolutely zero knowledge on this subject. My experience was really limited. I had those annual biometric screenings as part of my health insurance requirement and would check my, obviously my blood glucose levels and other markers at routine lab work. And, I'd glance at the numbers on the report and, if everything was in the standard ranges or marked green, I assumed that was, all was well with my health. I didn't realize that just being in the green doesn't necessarily mean you're thriving or that everything is functioning optimally. Well, the more I learned, the more I understood that these numbers tell a much bigger story. And it became very clear to me that many people, like myself, are walking around without a real understanding of their metabolic health. We need to dig deeper than surface level results and start asking the right questions about our glucose levels, insulin function, and overall wellness. Okay, clinically normal versus optimal. So now that we know what glucose is, let's talk about what's considered quote-unquote normal versus what actually might be optimal for our health. And your doctors are using these guidelines. They're set by organizations like the American Diabetes Association, which there's a lot we could talk about there too. It's probably a future episode. But according to the American Diabetes Association, a fasting glucose level under 100 milligrams per deciliter is considered normal. If you're between 100 and 125 milligrams per deciliter, that's classified as prediabetes, and then anything above 126 is considered full-blown diabetes. But like we've been saying, just because something is normal doesn't mean it's optimal. There's growing evidence that suggests we should be aiming for a fasting glucose that's a bit lower, somewhere between 72 and 85 milligrams per deciliter, if we want to achieve optimal metabolic health. So the American Diabetes Association acknowledged that there needed to be a little bit more of a diagnostic criteria. So in 1997, I believe it was, July of 1997, they created some guidelines around diabetes and screening. And then they revised it in January of 2010. So the revision stated they added the A1C. So to be diagnosed with diabetes, your A1C would be 6.5 or greater. Your fasting glucose would be 126 or greater, fasting for at least 8 hours. They also add in here a 2-hour glucose. After you take 75 grams of oral glucose, it would be 200 or higher. And then if you just took like a random glucose at some point throughout the day, they also are stating 200 milligrams per deciliter or higher. So those are the criteria they came up with to diagnose diabetes. Quick timeline in addition to that, June 1997, they adopted diagnostic criteria based on recommendations from experts at the time. The criteria included this classification system, diagnostic methods, and then these cutoff values where you see, at this point, this is when it's pre-diabetic, this is when it's diabetes, so they sort of laid that out in 1997. 2010 is when they added the A1C requirement, and then In 2022, the American Diabetes Association lowered the age to screen for prediabetes and type 2 diabetes to 35 years old. So that's pretty crazy that there's a lot of a rise in diabetes diagnoses. So the fact that we are now screening people starting at 35 years old is really saying something about how the food industry has changed. I mean, diabetes wasn't even a thing, so now all of a sudden we're like, okay, I mean, kids have prediabetes. There's just like a lot going on here. So this was just a couple years ago that they lowered the standard. We just keep lowering the standard so that normal seems more optimal. It just seems kind of strange. According to Levels Health, the company that I use their app and get CGMs through, they've done a lot of research based on healthy individuals wearing CGMs. So that's sort of where I got the 72 to 85 milligram per deciliter fasting glucose range is optimal according to Levels. And then according to their data, they're seeing that an average post-meal glucose level is around 110 milligrams per deciliter or lower. So that would be optimal according to their data. And high post-meal glucose levels can worsen glucose control over time and lead to a lot of chronic conditions like obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, cognitive performance like Alzheimer's and other conditions. So we really do need to be paying attention to these numbers. And so even non-diabetics, we need to have an understanding of our glucose levels. Pre-meal, fasting glucose, post-meal, we just need to start recognizing the signs if we think we might have some dysregulation. Why didn't I accept quote-unquote normal as optimal? So let's jump right into why I refused to accept the "your labs are normal" mantra I was hearing from my doctor's office. If you haven't caught my previous episode, I encourage you to go back and listen. I dive into the details of kind of what my doctors were telling me. It sort of sets the stage for understanding the pivotal decisions I was making. So when my husband and I decided we wanted to start a family, I began having labs drawn by both my primary care doctor and then a while later a naturopath. And we wanted to keep tabs on my health to ensure I was in the best possible condition prior to conception. And during this time, I began noticing a concerning trend on my level, and I had talked to my naturopath about it. My fasting glucose levels were just consistently creeping up to the high end of normal, sometimes tipping a little bit over. It really just depends. And we're talking numbers like 96, 99, 102. It wasn't just like a one-time occurrence. It was over several months, despite my best efforts to eat healthy and incorporate things more like chickpea pasta and lean meats and salads, and I was still seeing these elevated readings. So I brought this up with my naturopath, and the numbers persisted like this. And I know that changes in our health don't happen overnight, but I really thought I was making these lifestyle modifications and was really really eager to see the change. And so my naturopath, she said, just kind of keep doing what you're doing. Obviously things don't happen overnight. She didn't have a whole lot of recommendations. So, for me personally, I like to dive a little deeper. So I started thinking about getting a glucometer, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to I'm not going to sit on the sidelines, especially with my health. I really just want to see what I can do here. Started using the glucometer, and I just quote unquote pretended like I had diabetes. This meant I took my fasting glucose every day and meticulously documented it. I kept a notebook where I wrote everything down, where I ate, types of exercise I did, the timing of meals, and really any other relevant observations or notes I had to contribute. And as I began to analyze my data, I did notice some patterns, but I still felt like I was missing some of the bigger picture. So that's when I decided to turn to the CGM for more comprehensive insights. I had been, and still am, an avid listener of the Doctor's Pharmacy podcast, and I often heard discussions about Levels Health and apps for them, and it was designed for analyzing CGM data. And at the time, this was back in late 2019, they were in the early stages of building their company and were offering a beta program. So after months of hearing about it, I finally took the plunge and applied and got accepted. So essentially, the program offered a flat fee for access to the app and 2 CGMs each month and the flexibility to pause or stop anytime you wanted. It just felt like an invaluable opportunity for me to gain those real-time insights into my glucose levels. So even with the CGM, I continued to track with my readings and glucometer in between sessions. And I really want to share more about that experience with levels in the next episode, so stay tuned for that. So during this process, I took a closer look at my glucose labs. Again, they were sitting higher on the standard normal range, and I didn't want to be that close to out of range. So here's some more reasons why I really took these things to the next level, the glucometer, the CGM, really asking questions. Here's why you don't want to be hovering on the high end of normal. You're at the risk of progressing to prediabetes or diabetes. And once you tip into those categories, let me be honest, it becomes significantly harder to reverse. It's not impossible, but it is going to take far more effort and dedication to get your health back. It's like trying to backtrack and undo all the things you've done, and it's always going to be harder once you have progressed out of normal. So it's better to start taking notes and making changes now when you're kind of getting close, and it's easier to make those changes now. High glucose is linked to metabolic dysfunction, which is contributing to chronic conditions. Insulin resistance is a key contributing factor to numerous chronic conditions, including heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, infertility, Alzheimer's. We've talked about this a little bit. And it just having those long-term implications was a wake-up call for me. So I hope it is for you too. And potential medication recommendations. When your glucose levels exceed the standard range, your doctor may start to suggest medications, which can oftentimes carry side effects that can complicate your health journey even further. So for me personally, I don't want to be prescribed a pill and then hope it masks the problem. I'd rather not even get to that point. So if there's something else I can do, maybe it's supplements or different foods or a different way to eat, I would rather go that route than be prescribed something. So overall, like I've said, this experience cemented in me that I need to resolve and take care of my health and seek the answers I need. And I also have learned that it's just so crucial to advocate for yourself and not settle for what's considered normal when it comes to your health. Alright, just to recap, today we dove into the world of glucose and its critical role in our health. We explored what glucose is and how it works in our bodies and why maintaining a balanced level is essential for overall well-being. We distinguished the difference between clinically normal and optimal glucose levels, highlighting and aiming for the high end of normal may not be good enough for your health goals. Additionally, we discussed the potential dangers of elevated glucose levels even if you're not diabetic. And I emphasize the importance of taking charge of your own health because remember, just when something is labeled normal doesn't mean it's optimal for you. So you don't have to wait for your doctor to prompt you to start paying attention to your body or a certain lab result. Maybe it's glucose, maybe it's something else. You need to take charge of your health and start asking questions. And if you need to go find a different doctor or an alternative path, please do that. So if you found this episode valuable, please consider sharing it with someone who might benefit. Your support really helps spread the awareness and empowers others to take charge of their health journey too. So until next time, keep advocating for yourself and keep on glowing.